Well, hello, everyone. If you're seeing me today, that can only mean one thing. We are back for DisruptHR Dallas. And we're coming to you on September. Oh, I'm not going to give too much away. The reason I am live today is we're starting to introduce our great speakers. And what better way to bring on Brian Galke today, who is just, I'm really excited, Brian, by your talk.
Thank you.
The decoding detective.
Yes.
I'd love for you to introduce yourself and just share a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I'm Brian Galke. I'm a keynote speaker, trainer, coach. I live in Dallas, Texas, and I speak on like tactical skills that anybody can use. And the best part about it is I'm a product of the product. And that was in 2010. I met a guy who taught me F.A.C.E. And what was interesting about it is I actually went to go prove that the guy was a fraud because I'm like, look, I've got books on body language, you name it, because I'm an introvert. And so I'm usually shy. So what better way to understand people than to study them, right? And so I had tons of body language books. And somebody said, you got to come meet this guy. I'm like, why? She goes, because he reads faces. And I go, yeah, that doesn't exist. That can't be real. And I went with a chip on my shoulder. I thought, I'm going to prove that this guy's a fraud. I've read books on mentalism, magic, you name it. So I'm going to catch this guy using generic statements that apply to everybody. And he sat us all down at dinner and he went person by person and I couldn't catch him doing it. Like I was ready to just bust this guy. And then he got to me and I was like, this guy's been digging through my trash. Like it's kind of unnerving.
Oh my
Like,
goodness.
yeah. And it changed my life. And so I thought, I'm still a little skeptical. So I went, I got his book. And so the original book was called Amazing Face Reading. And he's got a new one with the title of Power Face Reading now. You can see my little name tags from when I was a student.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah. And I studied it and I would take the book with me and I'd lay it out at places and human curiosity kick in. Well, what's the book about? And I'd say, well, I kind of think this guy's full of it. So can I ask you what the book says? Can I tell you what I see in your face and you tell me if it's accurate or not? And it was never 100%, but it was in the high 90s. And I will take that all day long.
Wow.
And where introverts live, and I'm an introvert, is you live in the prison of your own mind. But when I'm focused on you, who am I not thinking about?
You.
Yeah. And it changed my life. So when I met him, I was starting on my journey through technology. I started as an introvert on the help desk, and then I wanted to be an installer because I wanted to get out of the office. And they said, well, if you're going to be the installer, you have to be the corporate trainer too, because you have to teach everybody. I'm like, oh, okay. And I used to sell technology to jails and prisons. And so that meant that I taught everybody from officers to prisoners how to use our stuff. And so literally I would talk from politicians to prisoners. And it just really helped me understand people of, I know what I want to say, but am I speaking their language or not? And it completely changed my life. 9 promotions later, I was a regional vice president of sales with a team and just going all over the US. And the big thing I figured out was when you learn to focus on other people, you can achieve more than you can focus on just the product or your service.
Wow, I love that. And just share, if you're able, some of the things you're looking out for. What are some of those prompts? And then how do you use it to help others?
My favorite one to teach is eyebrows, because eyebrows tell you a ton about information about people. So how do they take in information? How do they process information? Do they make decisions fast or slow? And here's the beauty of it. It's the first proactive skill I'd ever met, meaning I can go look you up on LinkedIn ahead of time so that when we actually go to meet, it's like, oh, okay, now, I know how to talk to the person that's there. So for example, what I love is your glasses tell me how you think because your glasses hide your eyebrows. And so that's the funny thing about people is even from far away, if you can't see their eyebrows, if they're wearing glasses, they kind of tell you. So you have high rounded eyebrows. So eyebrow, depending on the height of the eyebrow, the higher the eyebrow is, the more time people want before they make a decision. And that's a result of going over time going, well, let me think about it. So it's a study of the 43 muscles in the face. So if you see somebody whose eyebrow is more than a finger's width above their eye, give them time to make a decision. Don't force them to make fast decisions. However, if you go in and because somebody's always doing this, and then their eyebrow will lower over time. And so, the longer you talk, the more you're going to lose somebody. And the entire reason why, and in my talk, I'm going to cover eyebrows in the short period of time we have together, is because eyebrows lead to eye contact, which is a lost art this day and age.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is fascinating. And then I guess you've got the other difficulty with, with the, I'm making an assumption here with more women, Botox and everything else, that comes into play surely somewhere.
Sure. It does. That's an affect change that affects how people treat you. So the difference is women have been taught their entire life, what do I want to stand on my face? Do I want my cheeks to look wider? Do I want my eyelids to look fuller? The difference is you haven't always known why you're doing it, but you know what effect you're going for when you have it done.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a fan of anything that makes you feel sexier. If it makes you feel good about yourself, do it. I don't care if it's shoes, watch, car, you name it. My only request is don't get so much Botox done that you can't move. Like if I can confuse you with a mannequin in the mall, that's too much.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah. And there's some pretty bad ones out there, I've got to be honest.
Oh, yes.
So I'd love to know more about your time dealing with, say the prison services, because
Mhm.
you must have had some real experiences that were both heartwarming and
Yes.
sad at the same time during that experience, where this skill
Mhm.
would have been so vitally important to not just yourself to be able to help, but
Right.
also to have shared with shared with others to share some value for them as well.
Sure. There is, and I'll give you examples of real life and speaking world and a previous life when I go in. Well, the first thing when you go into any dangerous environment is you have to learn to pay attention to what's going on, right? Like situational awareness, because there are some bad people who deserve to be in places like that, but then
Yeah.
there's good people who made bad decisions,
Yeah.
right? And so part of the things that you can look for, they're things that are more along micro expression. So, for example, if you see a lot of white under somebody's pupil, a lot of white like this, those are people who are under stress. So in any environment you work in, if you see somebody for several days or something, they have a lot of white under their eyes, you can ask them, hey, how's everything going? Are you doing okay? Because they're under stress. Now, if you walk through anywhere and you see the white is above their eyes, they're over their limit, meaning potential violence is coming.
Oh,
So
wow.
you can, yeah. So what you look for is then what are other indicators of violence? And that's fight or flight syndrome. So what happens are people start clenching their jaw. They start flaring their nostrils because they're getting oxygen to their muscles because their body's going into fight or flight mode. So there are little things that are both reactive and proactive skills that you look at. So if I was walking through somewhere and I saw the white above their eyes, then I'd look to see, like, they could just be looking up or looking down, but are those other signs there? Okay, that's a person to stay away from, or is there anything going on? And then if I ever went into an environment and the entire white around somebody's eyes are here, that's what you see in car crash victims. Somebody who's seen anything traumatic, the brain kind of doesn't know how to handle it. And so, like, if I do like this with my eyes, you would think, what's wrong with me? So
Yeah.
when you see that on somebody, that's somebody who's not living in the present moment. And either they've been through something traumatic or they've seen something traumatic, and you need to find out kind of what's going on. So if I was to ever go into an environment where I was outnumbered and I saw several people like that, something just happened that we don't need to be in there for. So I wasn't telling anybody these skills I was learning because it was kind of like a shameful thing. Like, why does it seem so easy for other people and a struggle for me? And so that's why the company's named Subtle Skills, because you can study these things and you never have to share with another person. But the entire study, everything I teach is what I've learned. And that's just learning how to understand other people so you can relate and build connection with them differently. And if there was anything that I wish people really understood about decoding other people, is people think it's judgment, and it's the absolute wrong way to look at it. It's not judging anyone. It's like trying to judge somebody's fingerprint, because no two faces are alike. Even identical twins have different facial features. And that's because there's 43 muscles in the face. The mind creates movement, movement creates muscle. Well, we are 60% what we inherited from our parents, our grandparents, you name it. But then after that, from the minute we're born to the minute we pass away, those 43 muscles are always changing. And it's changing based on the thoughts we have. And people go, oh, that can't be true. Well, what happens if you have a stroke in the brain? This side of your face goes limp. Have a stroke over here, this side of your face goes limp. So it's proof that the brain is controlling the muscles in our face. So the thoughts we have impact the feelings we have and the faces we make. So on a jovial note, when our parents said, stop making that face or it's going to get stuck that way, there's actually some truth to that.
I love that. I love that. And I think it's really interesting because I'm a massive fan of Joe Dispenza, who
Oh,
talks
yes.
about,
Mm-hmm.
breaking the habit of being yourself, and his miraculous story of what happened to him after his biking accident.
Yeah.
You're never going to walk again. However, we'll do all these operations, and he discharged himself
Yes.
despite his pain, and
Yeah.
healed himself one part of his body at a time, using his mind to change everything. And I think that shows a real power. And I see this along a similar line in terms of, because there must be something a lot in here. And it's just talking to you around, as you start to appreciate this and understand this, you also get more self-awareness, I would have thought, in terms of
Yes.
how am I coming across? How do I not present better, but how do I make deeper or better connections, be it at work or, outside of work?
That's really the goal. Is if you've ever read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl,
I haven't.
Highly, highly recommend that book. The first half is really hard because he was a Holocaust victim, and he actually talks about everything from being removed from his house to walking into a prison. And if you go this way, you go to the showers. If you go this way, you go to the gas chamber, but you don't know that. But because he was a doctor, he had to take care of other prisoners. And so the first half is very, very rough or traumatic to go through. But then the second half is the philosophy he learned from it. And the basics of it were the people who survived weren't the ones who said, I'm going to make it, I'm tough. They're the ones who said, I want to see my kid again. I want to see my husband again. I want to see my wife again. I want to see my parents again. And so what it shows is when we try and do things for other people, we can actually accomplish more things, which is really in theme with what we're going to be talking about with HR. HR is people helping people, right? Yeah. So if you've not read that book, it's a fantastic book. I highly, highly recommend it. I put books on my webpage that have helped me that I think other people should read. So if you ever go to my resources page, I'm constantly putting up books on body language, statement analysis, but Man's Search for Meaning is one of those books I list on there.
Okay. I've as we were talking, I just wrote down Viktor Frankl, Menopause Brain, because I was like, that's kind of, that's right up there. And I think the 5 wishes you make before you die I think is another one.
Yes. I love that book. Can I tell you a short story about that book? I wasn't supposed to find that book, but I did. And that's because when I used to travel for work, I would just go through the airport, you're killing time. And there was only a single copy of that. And so the one that I got was the 5 Secrets to Discover Before You Die. And when I went to go pay for it, it doesn't ring up in the system. And so we said, okay, well, let's just say it's $20. And that's what they charged me for. But it was the only copy of that book. And that book is so insightful because we get caught up in the day-to-day of everything. And then when they interviewed, and I love it, just some of the specifics for people who've never read it, is they interviewed people, I think it was 50 and beyond. They were already retired. They weren't in the rat race, saying, now that you've lived through your life, good or bad, what do you appreciate? What do you wish you would have done differently? And it's an amazing book that people should read.
Yeah. I agree. It has one of those, it had the same impact on me. I loved it.
Yeah.
So Brian, let's fast forward to where you are today and some of the work you've done. I'd love to hear more of who you work with and some of the results that you're getting for your clients, because this is fascinating and really impactful.
It is. It all started in sales. And the reason why is because, number one, I came from a sales background, but most companies do something right, but they do it wrong at the same time.
Yeah.
And that is sometimes the only budget that they have is for sales teams. And so that's where it started. But then when I got into companies, they realized, well, wait a minute, we need this for leaders, for people who were employees who became leaders to understand their employees, or let's use it at team building, team bonding. I go and speak at CEO retreats because what do leaders need is they need to understand how to motivate and how to work with the people below them. Now, I can tell you where I think the future is going. I think this is going to become more and more valuable, any type of emotional intelligence skill, because kids grew up with this lovely device that connects them to the world, but it disconnects them from each other. Are you familiar with the intelligent.com study from December of 2023?
I know of it, but if you ask me what was in it, can't remember, Brian.
Sure. So high level, They asked in December of 2023, 800 companies, what's the hardest thing about hiring kids out of school right now, high school or college? And what they found is 53% of them couldn't make eye contact during the job interview. 21% refused to turn on their camera for a virtual interview.
Yeah.
And then a certain percentage brought their parents as well, because they've grown up with devices. And it's easy to make fun of kids, but we realize we gave them the devices that created that destruction.
Yeah.
Now, I'm 51. When I was growing up, the phone rang with no caller ID. Everything I needed in life required me to talk to another person to get it. Now, they can order dinner, dates, drivers, products, and never have to talk to another person. And so we gave them that capability, and then we're making fun of them for not having the communication skills that they need. But yet they've got brilliant AI skills, technology, and so I do think that's really where training is going to go, is as people enter the workforce, how do they learn to communicate with the customers and their coworkers? There's a kind of an unfair term right now called the millennial stare. And that is where younger kids are taking jobs at like coffee shops and things. And people go, hey, thanks, have a great day. And they'll go, uh-huh. And there's no emotion because they're not used to interacting with people. They're used to interacting with devices. And, I have a 9-year-old. She loves her tablet. She loves watching YouTube videos, kids YouTube, you name it.
Oh, yeah.
And people make fun of like, well, how can they like watching other people, do something? I'm like, well, that's no different than us going to a sporting game. Like when I go to a baseball game, I don't get to play baseball. I'm watching other people move,
Yeah.
But we've given them the ability and think that communication is only done via text message, FaceTime, whatever. So we have to help re-educate them because we didn't educate them in the first place. That's where I think the future of communication is going to need to go.
Do you know, Brian, I agree. And it's really interesting. A couple of stories. So one's, just a minor one. I was out walking this morning and, I'm trying to do more of that in the morning to clear the mind, get the day going and all that,
Yes.
all that good stuff. And I always feel so much better when I do that. Anyway, it was really interesting. And I did an experiment on the way back. And everyone who was my kind of age, eye contact, good morning, how are you, lovely weather, lovely day and everything else.
Right.
But everyone else who was around that millennial and younger, no eye contact down. And if they did, and I said good morning, to your point, straight, it felt like they was staring straight through me.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm mumbling under my bed, well, you're rude.
Yeah.
But, they're not. It's just different. But that's how we respond.
It is. It's, like I said, it's like everything. We learn through exposure. Well, when they don't have to deal with other people, right, then they don't learn those experiences. So I'll tell you what personally works for me. I have a 9-year-old. When we go to restaurants, she can bring her tablet, but she can't have it until she's done with her meal. And so she has to order from the server. She has to eat her meal in a timely fashion. The reason we started bringing it was because they bring kids' food out first a lot of times. Well, kids are done and adults are still talking. So then she can jump on her iPad. Now, if her food comes out wrong, I don't fix it. She can tell me what's wrong. Then she has to ask the server to rectify it and I'll assist. But when she would say, I want you to do it, I'll say no, because it's your food. And I'm giving her in a safe environment the opportunity to learn how to handle conflict, and obviously if the server was rude to her, I would correct that.
Absolutely.
But, there's a term now that it's not my term, but I stole it from whoever stole it from somebody else. And that was, when I was growing up, there was what was known as helicopter parents. They were parents who kind of hovered around their kids. Well, the new term is lawnmower parents. And that is they want to know what adversity is their kid facing, and then they mow it down before the kid ever has to. So we had this discussion at dinner the other night. When I got in trouble at school, that meant I got in trouble at home too now.
Oh, yeah.
But now if you get in trouble at school, parents threaten to sue the school. And now there's an incident report for everything. Like, it's a very strange day and age to live in. And don't get me wrong, sometimes like for my daughter to walk down the street or anything like that in neighborhoods, I'm like, oh gosh, should I watch her? Is everything okay? We disappeared until the lights came on.
Yeah. And, we never told anyone where we were going.
Exactly. But we weren't living under this 24 hours a day, bad news, where your kid, it used to be that 10 o'clock, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are? Was what popped up on the TV. But that just went to show that kids had a lot of freedom. and they made their own decision making. And did we do dumb things? Yes. Were we places we weren't supposed to be? Yes. But that's how you learn. And I'll tell the story of one time we went to dinner and we had some neighbors that had 2 kids around my daughter's age, and they said, oh, let's all go to dinner. And so we said, great. And we showed up and we didn't bring our tablet because they've got 2 kids, right? Their kids are going to play and do tic-tac-toe or something. We walked in and both our kids were already on iPads with headphones on. And what you choose to do is fine. So I'm sure, the adults from time to time when they go somewhere, they want adult conversations. They have the kids preoccupied. But what was the point of bringing our kids if our kids aren't going to talk? And so, we're just like, well, we didn't bring our tablet. So then they took theirs off and then the kids played. But you see that when you go to a lot of restaurants where, the headphones, I get it because we don't want to listen to everything the kids do. But I also one of the rules at my house is unless I'm on a work call, you don't get to have headphones because I want to hear what you're hearing. Yeah. Because I do worry. If you've ever listened to some of the videos that somehow make it to the kids' channels, it's like, whoa, that should not be there. But I do she's got to go do certain things. And, because technology is easy, I'm sure it's no different than when television came out and our parents are like, don't sit that close. You're going to ruin your brain. You're going to rot your brain. It's like that. But for them, it's with tablets and technology. But we really have to get them talking to each other, doing things. I mentioned before, I live in Dallas, Texas. Last year in the 2025 to 2026 year, the school banned electronics. Great. It actually started in January of this year. So now kids can't take their phones, they can't take Apple Watches, and they found that the kids get along and they socialize. They're actually communicating with each other again. And look, I'm guilty of it. I go to the coffee shop, sometimes I order, and while I'm waiting for my coffee, I'm like, okay, I'll just be on my phone. But imagine that's all they've grown up knowing what to do. And so there's a resurgence. I don't know if you even came up with this, where companies are hiring back what would be considered elder generations because they can communicate with customers. Yeah. So they were the first ones to be let go because they had higher salaries. And they thought, well, we can bring in younger kids. That's been going on since the beginning of time, right? There becomes a point where sometimes people look at salaries, not at personalities. But what they had to find out was, we have to hire people back because yes, the younger generation is intelligent and is willing to work hard, but they're missing a key component, and that's communication. So I go out of my way. I want my daughter to learn to socialize because then she can just rule the earth, when other people don't have that skill.
Yeah. And I do think with, AI getting more and more advanced, and you can go down so many rabbit holes with that, right? In terms of, the end of the world is 2026, 2027, 2028, and 2030. 2029 doesn't seem to come up, interestingly.
Right.
But no one knows what's going to happen there. But my point is, it's now the time to be even more human than we've ever been, I think. And
yes,
people are craving that human connection.
100%.
So to be able to say to our children, and that, and those of us who are fortunate to be surrounded by youngsters, rather than, or when I was your age, we had grazed knees from falling off our bikes and falling out of trees. That was
right.
Just having the infrastructure to take these devices away, because we didn't have that 24/7 access when we were younger. Would we be like them if we did? We probably would. So supporting them to give them that infrastructure is so important.
So we can go on something that is not technology, but it's what we give kids today. And again, I'm going to date myself. I'm 51. When I had Legos, they didn't come with instructions. I had the creative ability to build whatever I wanted. Now you go to the Lego store, all that they sell is Legos to build a certain thing. We're taking away creativity and freedom from kids that they need. So we're doing it in so many different areas. So now a kid who becomes a young adult won't do anything that they don't have exact instructions for.
Yeah.
If AI can't tell them how to do it, then they'll come and go, well, how do I do this? Because they've grown up being told what to do. And no different. Look, I trusted Google when it first came out, right? I'm happy with technology. I'm happy with, if I go to the library, I can look up on a computer, not the Dewey Decimal System, right? I'm happy that we have calculators instead of counting on fingers. I'm not bashing technology. Yeah. But you have to look at How do you trust it? Well, they just believe AI because they've grown up and that's a quick and easy answer. And even as someone who has courses and things, course sales are down because people don't want to take the time to learn something. They just want instant answers. And that's all age ranges because we've become so accustomed to getting instant answers that it's mind blowing. I mean, I remember dial up, internet.
Oh, yeah.
Where you hope I got a picture. It's going to take 5 minutes to download, or whatever. And hopefully nobody picks up the phone in the house and disconnects us, but everything that they've grown up with is instant gratification. And as adults, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really interesting. I think one of the things that we're seeing is we have a business club and a mastermind. Mm-hmm. Now they are doing really well because not only are we coaching, but they've got the peers around them.
Yes.
So that peer connection. And I think you're right. I think there's an element of those, buy this course now and watch it later. Of course they're going to go down because there's none of that human interaction.
Yes.
So how are you seeing with the work that you do today, how is that helping refocus some of the teams you work with to show up on that more human level? Because you must be coming up against that back in the room almost scenario with some of your clients right now. How are you handling that?
So it's interesting when people first hear what it is, they assume it's voodoo-ish, like, oh, well, can you read palms also? I'm like, nope, I don't know that. They are also very surprised to learn that face reading has been around since Aristotle wrote the very first book on it. So there are dozens of books on it. And here's a really crazy fact. It was actually taught in English universities until Henry VIII said, I don't like the idea that beggars and vagabonds can use it against their fellow man. And he had it taken away.
Wow.
But it's still taught to 3 groups. It's taught to authors because you have to learn how to describe characters in your book. And the only way to do that was through their actions and through their facial features. It was taught to artists because artists had to learn to draw the characters that were in the books.
Yeah.
And then it was taught to attorneys for jury consulting. That's where my mentor, he was an attorney. He twisted his knee. He picked up a book on, it's called Physiognomy. If you look up the study, it's not a science because it's not 100% repeatable, but the study is called Physiognomy. And then he found out, he went back to TCU because I live in Dallas, Texas. He was over in Fort Worth and he went and grabbed like 20 different books on it and started studying it and using it. And then he wrote his own book on it. So he wasn't the first one to discover it. It's been around for a very, very long time. Once people learn the history, and more importantly, once we do activities in the classrooms or from stages, because I'm a keynote speaker, I may speak to 10 people, I may speak to 1,000 people. Then they go and try it. And then I get constant calls back like, I will never look at eyebrows the same, or you taught me this, or whatever. The big thing, and you already hit up on this earlier, is punishment against anyone is making them withdraw from society. Yeah. So if we want to punish a kid, go to your room. Don't be around other people. What do we do with the worst of worst prisoners? Solitary confinement. Because we know the worst punishment there is isolation. Now, there will be some introverts here who go like, I love isolation. Mm-hmm. You like it when you choose it, but you wouldn't like it if it was forced upon you.
Absolutely.
And so what it does is it just helps people learn to understand people differently, and it makes people curious about others. So, for example, a dealership in California that I taught, overall sales went up between 6 and 10%. And the reason I say that is because it was over different divisions within. So the smartest thing the sales manager did is he said, I'm bringing you in to train my floor staff who sell the cars, but we're bringing you staff from parts, from service. Everybody who had to touch a customer came and sat in on the courses. And what they learned is what you want to say, you have to learn to tailor to the person you're talking to. And when you can do that, you get confidence. Yeah. And when you have confidence, you communicate better. And so like if you go and look up somebody on LinkedIn, you don't have to know everything about them, but it's no different than the book How to Win Friends and Influence People. What did it always tell you to do? Go and look up Sam and figure out, well, does Sam have any charities? Where does she live? What do we have in common with Sam? Right? So we've been stalking each other for a very long time. If you do anything, you're always searching for what do we have in common?
Absolutely.
Yes. And now you can understand what facial features do we have in common, or how should I talk to the person? And there are some people are offended by everything. Like, Brian, this is manipulation. And I'll say, okay, Is it malicious? Is it manipulation, or is it a sign of respect? And they're like, okay, explain more. And I gave an example, like when I was a younger kid, I would travel to other countries. And when I did, well, I thought they should speak English. And if they didn't, well, I'd speak English louder.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But that wasn't a way to communicate. And what that did is that created bad relationships. So now any country I ever go to, I learn basic phrases. Please, thank you, good morning, good afternoon. You don't have to be fluent, but when you try to speak somebody else's language, they try to speak yours.
Exactly.
Yes. And that's what it's really about, is trying to find the commonalities, trying to figure out where are we the same, because we live in a world that's constantly trying to divide us by politics, by gender, by whatever it is. We need to stop looking for why we're different and start figuring out, if we are different, how do we meet in the middle? But why don't we start searching for more things that show us how much we're alike than different?
I love that. I love that. And let's come to Dallas. Let's come to DisruptHR Dallas, September 17th. What would you like the audience to leave with from your talk on the night?
A whole other way to look at people and appreciate them in a whole new light. So it may only be 5 minutes, but I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm a tactical speaker. They're going to learn, what does eyebrow height mean? What are the 3 basic shapes of eyebrows? And I might add in 1 or 2 more things, because what I've learned is if you give them too much, it's overload, because it's brand new information.
Yeah.
But I want people to be able to go out and make eye contact with someone else and build relationships, because as automation and AI take over, relationships will be the new currency of where you get in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a lovely way of putting it. Relationships will be the new currency. And I fundamentally believe that. I think that's going to be something that's really important for us, not just in a work environment. I don't know what that's going to look like this time next year, let alone in 5 or 10 years.
Yes.
But actually, as society as a whole is continuing to change. So yeah, there's a lot in there that I hope people will actually also walk away from for themselves, not just that they can use at work as well.
Oh, it's a business skill that has a practical life application.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell corporations too. There's actually a slide I have. I say, hey, people ask all the time, where does it work? It works with your coworkers. It works with vendors you're working with. It works with, customers. And I say, where else it works? It works with friends and family too, because you're learning a life skill, not just a business skill.
What was some of the most challenging groups that you've had to work with, and what were the results you saw from working with you?
Sure. One of the most challenging ones was an engineering society. I won't say which customer it was, but it was a state. They hired me to speak. I was a keynote speaker at their engineering society, because they are extremely logical, smart, brilliant people who didn't have a lot of social skills when we started. But yet I was a day 1 speaker, and I would stay. If I'm speaking somewhere and I can stay for the entire event, I don't have to leave for another one, I stay so that people can come and interact. And by the time I left, it was like being a mini celebrity, because people come and be like, so I learned this the other night, and now I can talk to this person. I understand it. And the reason why it was so important to a lot of them is they were engineers who had to go walk onto people's property to talk to them about gas lines, electricity lines, things like that. And they had to walk up and talk to homeowners who are like, what are you doing at my house? So when they learned these skills, they just felt much more powerful in the conversational aspect of things. So that's a great example of that. On a more personal note, the way that I end a lot of keynote speeches is, depending on how the stage is set up, I'll either bring volunteers up on stage, or we'll set up a breakout room after I'm on stage. So it depends on the environment where I'm at. And even in corporations, sometimes people don't want to have themselves analyzed in front of other people. Sometimes they do. Where it goes south is when an organizer picks somebody, and this is one, and they have a very flat upper lip. So we say the phrase, keep a stiff upper lip, and we want you to stop talking, to be stoic, right? That's an indicator of someone who most of their life has done lip suppression, which is this. Well, if you do that enough, it flattens your upper lip. On the opposite side, if you were to leave an unhealthy relationship or a business where you weren't allowed to talk, and you start talking, your lip will get a little bit bigger over time. So if you take somebody who has a thinner upper lip and you volunteer them, I will literally write down a piece of paper, this person will argue with everything that I say.
Wow.
Yeah, because they don't like the idea that somebody knows that much about them without them giving permission to open up and know that about them. So that's always an interesting one. And the thing that used to freak me out the most, but I've learned to love in the long run, is when people have these three features. And that is they have very other people first friendly features, which you have these, a few of these. That is rounded eyebrow people. Think about the people around them first, themselves second. And then if they have a thinner upper lip, and then they have like a rounded chin, and then they have this deep line here. When you add, it's like cooking, or if you're a bartender, like when you add in the different ingredients, you have a completely different person. Well, somebody who has all four of those, the rounded eyebrow, they think about other people first. The flatter upper lip, they don't talk a lot about themselves. The rounded chin, they take one on the chin for others, but they have this line that's really deep right here. Well, that's the words of affirmation line. So 3 of the 5, if you've ever read the 5 love languages, 3 of the 5 are on someone's face. Well, if somebody has all those features I just described and it's really deep right here, they're never going to get the verbal affirmation or thank you that they're looking for, because they're not showing other people everything they're doing for them. So I'm not saying you should do cartwheels and go, look what I did for you. But if you're keeping it secret what you're doing to support others, you'll never get that thank you. And the first time I said that to somebody, she burst into tears.
Oh,
And as a guy, the first thing you do is like, hey, I didn't cause it. You know, you try and create distance. Yes. And I went home and I talked to my mentor and I'm like, Mac, I made somebody cry on stage. And he goes, did you sit in the moment with them? I said, no, I created space. I don't want to get yelled at, you know, like it'd be bad. He's like, no, what you robbed that person of was the opportunity to feel seen and heard. And so now 1 out of every 8 to 10 times, somebody will tear up because they thought nobody could see them. And so I'll ask questions like when I'm on stage, I'm say, hey, can I get personal? And they'll say yes or no. And then I'll bring that up. And what they realize is they're not being judged for crying or that. Other people see them feeling seen as well. And that's what we all want. There's 4 basic human needs: physical safety, emotional safety. People want to feel seen and heard, and then people want to feel connected. Well, I can't help with the first 2, but even in the 5 minutes we're going to have in September, we can help with the second 2.
Brian, I am so excited about it. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you, either around connecting with you based on the conversation today, or they're interested in working with you, what's the best place for them to reach out and actually get a chance to talk to you and connect?
Sure. If you're watching this, then you can see subtleskills.com. I'm everything subtle skills. So Instagram, you name it. What I have learned is no one can spell subtle. So an easier way to just get the basic information, like you want to get the cheat sheet, go to getthecheatsheet.com, and that will take you, it'll redirect you to my website.
Amazing. Brian, I am really, really excited about your talk in Dallas in September. We were thrilled when we actually read your talk. We had we had close to 60 actually applicants, and yours was one of the ones that obviously for us really stood out. And just throughout today's talk, I felt a few times the hairs on the back of my neck go up. So I hope, well, I know that your talk's going to have the same impact on others. So Brian, I want to say thank you so much for coming on today, for putting yourself forward for Disrupt. And I am so excited to see the value that you're going to add and those connection points that undoubtedly will come from your talk in September. So thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you.
All righty. Well, cue the music, everyone, and we'll see you in Dallas.
Bye, everybody.